Department of Psychology. So just a bit. Yeah. The first question I want us to reflect on is why publish? Why do we need to publish? And as we can see, we are talking about a dissertation, a thesis, or any research that you have carried out and you want to make a publication out of it. In many institutions, it is a requirement for graduation for postgraduate students that before you graduate, you should actually publish an article from your research. And as I begin this presentation, this is a conversation I just want us to have. Like, should this be the reason for publishing? Yes, I know most of us are attending because soon you'll be graduating and you need to publish for graduation. But in this presentation, I would say that we need to upgrade our reason for publication. We shouldn't tie it just to be a requirement for graduation, but as an upcoming scholar, it is an opportunity to communicate your research to the community, to the academic community. It's an opportunity to create knowledge as an expert now in the area that you have researched on. So I want us to go beyond just publishing for graduation. When you publish for creating knowledge, that is a deeper reason for publication. Because what I've seen is, I've seen many students do a very good job in their dissertation, in their thesis, and then they only publish one article because that was what was required for graduation. Then they keep the other work. They never publish again because they already met the minimum requirement for graduating. If you are going to look at publication as a way of contributing knowledge to your area of the discipline of your study, then even beyond graduation, you'll continue with the legacy of publication. So those are points of thoughts that we begin with, and looking at publishing also is improving your rating as a researcher. So when you are a researcher and you don't publish, then that does not contribute to your rating because you are not contributing to your field. You'll do your thesis and just keep it in the library. That alone is not contributing to your area of study. But if you are publishing, this is also increasing your rating as a scholar. And so these are some of the other reasons that I would encourage us to work on publishing our work. And as we look at this, we are saying again, we are not going to rush because I know for many universities, this time is people are entering the semester for graduation. So you'll find you then, as a scholar, an early career scholar, you are giving into pressure to rushing through an article. You find people rushing and even publishing an article within a week and in a very poor journal, just so that they can be able to meet the requirements for graduation. But as someone who has been in this space for some time, I would really encourage that you balance. There should be a balance. The requirement for graduation, contributing knowledge, and also adding quality to the area of study that you've been carrying out your research on. And that then will inform even at what speed do you publish. So you are not going to look for a journal that is requiring only 2 days to publish. And that's why I'm saying do not give in to the pressure of rushing through the article and then you compromise quality. Sometimes when you look at the work you are publishing, maybe in the next 10 years, you will be a senior scholar and people will be looking at the article you publish and they are looking at your name that time and looking at the quality of that article and they are wondering, is it the same person? So you want to take time and take the right steps in publishing, because whatever you are going to publish again will not be forgotten from the internet. So when we will Google your name in future, then we are associating you with a very poorly done article. That would be a very bad reputation for you. So the purpose of this seminar is just then to help us to understand how do we go through this process? How do we actually write this quality article that we are talking about? How do I identify even the type of journals that I'm supposed to publish in? How do I also identify journals that I'm not supposed to publish in? All those will be able to go through in this presentation. And so we want now to focus to get back to looking at the work that you have done. This is the work that you've done from which you want to develop a publication. And so what you need to do, like the whole dissertation cannot be an article. A dissertation can produce even 5 or above articles, depending on how many objectives you had. A thesis can produce even 5 and above articles. That's what we are saying. So when I'm targeting, as a researcher who wants to publish, when I'm targeting to publish work from my research, my thesis or my dissertation, the first part you need to begin with is to identifying the key findings and contributions. When you read your research yourself, you read this thesis, you'll find there are very important findings that you are feeling, yeah, this area I have really made a contribution, or these results have really brought up a new finding. These are the areas you now start reading in your dissertation and deciding which findings do you want the academic community to know. And so the first step is you are reviewing your dissertation and you are checking the findings. You want to pick out and see what is the most outstanding finding. What are the conclusions that I've made in my thesis, and what contributions do I want to highlight in the journal article? So it's not just lump sum publication of the entire dissertation. And we are saying you can extract many articles from the dissertation. So as you read your dissertation now, you are trying to map out. You are saying, yeah, I can map out using objective. Sometimes you can actually pick an objective and see the findings that are found on this particular objective. I would want to publish on this particular objective. There are times I've looked at a dissertation and I see let's say the demographic differences that are coming up are bringing so much contribution to my field of study. So I can actually decide to just to pick even demographics and publish on that particular area. So you can't just rush to publish an article before you understand deeply your findings and what new knowledge are you contributing to your area of study. So the first step is to interact with your dissertation well, and then identify the area that you are feeling as a researcher. This is a striking finding that I want to communicate to the academic community. So once you have reviewed your journal, your thesis, as we have started there, you then have again to think about what is the target journal? Where do I want to communicate these findings at? What particular journal do I want? So there are many journals, and some of them are not reputable. Some journals are not reputable. You publish your work there and you've spent quite a lot of money on this research. You have nice findings, but then you put in a journal that is not reputable. Sometimes these journals are not accepted by your universities. When you present this article somewhere in an interview, it will not be accepted. So again, I want you to be aware of that it's not just publishing. Now that we are saying publishing, you just pick any journal. There are journals that I'll be speaking about shortly, which we call predatory journals. So you don't want to publish your work in a journal that is predatory. So it's your work as a doctoral student or a researcher or a master student to ensure you look for a journal that is reputable. When you publish your work, it will stand the test of time. That this work will not reach somewhere and you are presenting even in an interview and they are telling you that work is not recognized, yet it is work that you have put in a lot of effort. So this step, of course, we'll go through. I'll give some guidelines on, yes, how do we get the reputable journals. You want to consider the scope of the journal, their focus, and the publication requirements. Now, as you begin to look for these journals, some journals, they have a scope in engineering, and maybe you are publishing from social work. Maybe you are publishing from psychology. So you want to identify journals that actually publish in your area. That's when your work will be more visible. So you are not just picking any journal, but you want to scrutinize even the journal. As I develop my article, I'm also consciously going through the available journals and seeing which journal will receive my work. Now, the other things that we are looking at in terms of the journal is this journal predatory? And when we say a journal is predatory, they are actually questionable journals. They are not acceptable in the academic community. And I've shared a link here. This is called the Bills list. Journals that are listed on the Bills list, they are usually classified to be predatory. So if I'm targeting a particular journal and I find it on Bill's list, then I will not send my work in that journal. Because yes, the work will be published, but then this work is not recognized in the academic community. So it will be a waste of time. It will be a waste of even resources that you put on your on the research work that you have. So I'll be sharing this later. So when you just pick this link and go online, if I have a journal that I'm suspecting I want to publish in this journal, but I don't know if it's predatory, if we go to this list and type the name of that journal there, if it appears, then it tells you it is not a good journal. But shortly, I'll also take you through, what are the characteristics of predatory journals, even if you don't check them on this list, what are good journals and what are bad journals. And it's a space that you need to take time in order to be able to identify the right journal. So it's not just rushing to get a journal. Now, one guideline that I would give on the quality of journal, if the journals are reputable, credible journals are usually owned by universities or professional associations. That can be a baseline that you can use to identify which journals do I publish my work in. But also this link of a directory of open access journals. These are journals that also meet the criteria of reputable journals. So if you take this and just Google it and look through, you'll find journals that are listed even in your area of study. These are journals that you can say these are reputable journals. So we've given you the other link for journals that are not reputable, but this is a link for journals that are reputable. But the baseline is, if you check your journal and you realize it is hosted by a university, usually this is a credible journal. It is hosted by a professional body. This is a reputable journal. But we have journals that are owned by individuals. Sometimes the academic community does not accept them as reputable journals. And then the other part is we want to look at also other conditions in the journal you are picking. Is this journal credible? But does it also have favorable publishing conditions? We want to look at things such as cost and timelines. So in short, we are saying you can now have a reputable journal, but this journal is too costly. There are journals you need to pay around $3,000 to publish. Now you are an early career scholar, you don't want to spend all that money on an article. So the journal may be reputable, but the cost of publication is very high. So when I'm looking for the target journal, I'm also considering the cost. Some journals only publish once a year. And say you are targeting to have your article published in the next 2 months, then you cannot submit to that journal, even if it is a reputable one, because you're also going by time span that you want your article to be published in. We've said we avoid journals that will publish your article in a week because those are predatory. But also you don't want to submit an article to a journal that will take 2 years, yet you wanted to use the same article for graduation. So when you're evaluating both sides, even the reputable one, you want to look at if my target is to publish within the next 3 months, then should I submit my work to a journal that is going to take 6 months or 7 months? Those are the other factors that you are considering, even as you talk about the kind of journal. So I want to take time to take you through now predatory journals. What are these journals? What are the characteristics? One of the characteristics of predatory journals, which we are saying you need to avoid, is they normally create their journal titles to be very similar to those of reputable journals. So if you are not careful, you'll even fall for it thinking this is a reputable journal. Usually they have words international, and I'm not saying all journals that have international are predatory, but one of the languages that these journals use to lure people to take their work there is using terms such as international. They'll even tell you they are hosted in one of the biggest cities in the world so that it lures you to publish there. And you need to read through this and realize, yeah, this is a language of just attracting you to submit your work, yet they are not very legitimate journals. And again, some of them, the frequency of publication is irregular. So you'll find some, when you go to their website, you check, you find the last time they published maybe in January, February, March, then they stopped publishing. Then they come and publish another year. When you see those irregularities, it can tell you, yeah, this journal is not a very reputable journal. But journals that are reputable, you'll find if they tell you they publish quarterly, you'll check and you'll see that's the system they are using. 4 times in a year. Others publish only 2 times in a year. There are those that publish monthly. But the frequency of publication, if it's irregular, it can actually be a red flag to look at. Then journals, some journals that are predatory are multidisciplinary and their focus is not clear. So you'll find a journal, when you go in, you find an article on maybe biology, engineering, construction, psychology. Now that's not a good journal because most journals have a focus. So you'll have a journal on maybe cultural psychology, a journal of social work, a journal of maybe linguistics. This is how many, like how various journals organize themselves. But if you find a journal, any article from linguistics, from history, from psychology, from engineering, then you begin to suspect the quality of this journal. And sometimes when you analyze the websites of these journals and the articles that are there, you'll even realize articles are published with spelling mistakes, grammatical mistakes, which means they were not reviewed. The articles that are being published, they are not peer reviewed. This is a very a great indicator for that. You don't want to send your journal to an article and even where there were wrong statements, wrong grammar, they published with those spellings. So when you are taking time to look at where am I going to publish, you need to check even the particular journal you are settling on and check such things. When you find they don't correct, they don't they have many issues with spellings and grammar, then it is a journal you want to run away from. Some of these journals also send you unsolicited emails. They are the ones actually sending you emails and telling you now you have finished your dissertation. Can you send us? We publish. When a journal starts sending you an unsolicited emails to publish with them, that's a red flag to look at. It's not a credible journal. Then there are journals that are not well known and they are difficult to locate in libraries. Usually journals are normally indexed in libraries, but if you find the journal you are going to publish in, you are checking where it is indexed. It's not indexed in any library of a university or anywhere. Then that also is a red flag that this is not a right journal that you want to publish in. You have journals whose editorial board members are also frequent authors. That's a red flag. So if you find the editor of this journal is also a regular author in that journal, usually it is a problem because they are recycling the same people within the journal, and that's not how you want to. You want to. That's not a space you want your work to appear in. Then we've said the journal is not indexed or is indexed in few databases. So indexing is another marker that I'll be using as a researcher if I'm determining whether this journal is predatory or not. Then the time for review, it's another indicator there. If this journal tells you they will review your work within a week, that is not practical. People spend time on your paper reviewing, so you can't just have a journal where you send your work today and then in 2 days' time they are telling you they have reviewed and given you a report. If the time of review is too short, that is a marker to be wary about. And now allow me to move to how to structure now. What do you do now? You've analyzed your dissertation. You've picked out the findings, the striking findings. You are saying, this is what I want to write my journal article on. you have checked journals and you have narrowed down and say, now this is the journal I want to publish in. So now how do I proceed to process now my article? How do I make an article from what I had found out in, or the areas that had marked out in the dissertation? So first, we are saying you are going to organize the content from your dissertation to fit the structure of a journal article. And you take note of that, because when I see students publishing or researchers publishing from their dissertations, and you read the journal, you feel you are still reading the dissertation. That's a major problem that I always see. So what we are saying, in most journals, these are the subsections, or these are the subheadings, or the structure of many journals look like this. You have an abstract, you have an introduction, which is normally combined with literature review. You have a methodology section, you have results, discussion, conclusion, and references. Usually, if you pick most articles online, this is the structure they follow. So that means if I'm extracting my work from my dissertation, then I'm going to organize that work in this structure. So I need to have an abstract for that work, and it's not the abstract that you had for the dissertation. I'll be getting to the nitty-gritties of that. Then you have an introduction, and it's not the introduction of your dissertation. You have a methodology, your results, a discussion, conclusion, and references. These are the main subheadings that you'll find in most journal articles. A reminder to you that the article is not an extension, or it's not an extract of your dissertation. So you need to refine this. When you are writing this article, you need to refine it to remove thesis-specific terminologies. Sometimes I read an article and a researcher is saying they are like the supervisor said, or they are acknowledging the supervisor. And I'm like, this journal you are writing, it's not a dissertation to have such terminologies like supervisor. This is an article, something that is very different from your dissertation. So what we are saying, it's you are now moving from your dissertation to a journal, and you need to check, is there language that is dissertation specific, that is not article specific? Those languages, those terminologies should be removed. So then I will now move to starting to look at each of these subsections of an article. So what do you write in an abstract? What do you write in an introduction, methodology, and the rest? So the sections of your article, and the first section of your article, remember, we go back to where we started, that you have identified striking findings that you want to communicate to the academic community. You've zeroed in and said, these are the findings that I want to publish on. Now, from those findings, then I will need to create a title. Your journal article should have a title, and the title should be simple, descriptive, that represents the specific findings and your specific article. So the title of the article is not the same as your thesis title. So you don't create a title of that paper just the way your dissertation looked is the title you pick. You have only picked a small section of your dissertation, a small finding that you are developing into an article. Now your article title should reflect those findings. So you can't have a full dissertation title, then it's not even relating to the small findings that you are going to zero in to write your article. So that's something to consider. And this is one of the points you begin to deviate from your thesis. You begin to deviate from your dissertation, that I'm not going to replicate the title of this dissertation, but I'm going to create a title that is specific to the findings that I want to publish on. And usually you could, a suggestion is you could craft that from an objective from the findings you want to publish. So if I'm publishing, I've zeroed in to publish my findings from particular objective in my thesis, then I would craft that objective to become the title of my article. So that just how we could come up with a good title. And then the other part you look at now is the introduction. What do you put in the introduction? You remember your dissertation or thesis had an introduction. What I've seen common mistakes that many scholars do, you get this introduction that you had in your dissertation, that's the same introduction that someone is copying and putting in the article. Yet they have zeroed in on findings that are not necessarily speaking about the whole dissertation. So what we are saying, once you get your findings, you need to rework an introduction and your literature to reflect those findings. So it's not the global background that you had in your dissertation that you are carrying and bringing to form the background of your article. You need to craft a background that will resonate with the findings that you are talking about. So that's something to check. So it's not just a copy paste of the background, the main background. It is you have to ensure that your background aligns with the findings of the paper that you are writing. And then after that, that is the introduction section. Then we look at now the methodology, another crucial area for an article. The methodology of your article should not be a replication of the methodology of the project or the thesis. The methodology again should be specific to the article that you want to write. For example, we have we have people who have written a dissertation using mixed methods designs. So in that thesis, they had both qualitative and quantitative data. But when you are scouting your thesis to extract a journal article, you actually picked a quantitative objective. It has nothing, like your results have nothing to do with qualitative. But remember, you are borrowing, or your global methodology for the dissertation was mixed method. Now, when you are writing the journal, you can no longer tell us again you are using mixed method, because the reviewers will look at your work and say, yes, you are using mixed method, but your findings are quantitative. So they'll ask you, please supply us with more findings for qualitative. So you want the methodology that you are putting up is not the methodology of the dissertation again. You are crafting a methodology that is aligning with the findings that you have. So if I did, let's say a mixed methods, I did a mixed methods study in the dissertation, but then I've chosen to publish my findings on just one quantitative objective. Then I will not state my design to be mixed methods. I'll state my design to be a quantitative, maybe correlational, maybe experimental, that aligns with these findings. So there is a way you are reworking your methodology to reflect the paper, not to reflect your dissertation. Then in this methodology, in the article, when you are writing your article, you need to check for these areas in your methodology. The methodology should include your design. And we are saying the design should be specific to the article, not the design you had in the dissertation. The methodology should include a sample size and sampling procedures. The methodology should include a discussion on your instruments. What instruments did you use to collect this data? Vividly discuss the instruments. If you use standardized instruments, how are they scored? How are they interpreted? Then there is a section that is normally overlooked that reviewers really concentrate on, the ethical considerations. This is a crucial part. Many journals are refusing to publish work that did not go through ethical approval. So if you obtained, say, a research permit or a license from an ethical review board, when you are writing your methodology, please do not ignore that. Report the ethical procedures that you followed. Was your work approved by an ethical review board? Report that. If this was approved and there is an approval number, quote that number. If you have a research permit, quote that number. That gives credibility to your article that you did not just do research that was unethical. So if you had, your country offers certificates for ethical, like in Kenya, we have certificates that are offered by the National Commission for Science and Technology, quote that number. So this is the structure of how a methodology of an article is supposed to look at. It's supposed to be very, very comprehensive. It's not just mentioning a design. You want to go deep and show scientifically how did you arrive at this particular methodology. How did you calculate? When you're talking about the sample size, it's not just mentioning. You are even showing which formula did you use to arrive at this particular sample size. And again, one thing that I want to mention there, remember, it is not a dissertation. It is an article. So I want to give a scenario here. You have a dissertation where your sample size was, say, 300 people. But in this sample, it was a mixed methods, but you are publishing out of it, you are publishing a qualitative paper. For qualitative, you only had 10 respondents. When I come to methodology, I cannot quote again the big sample, the 300, because my paper is drawing data from the 10 participants who participated in interviews or in the qualitative aspect of the research. So if I've chosen to publish a qualitative paper from my dissertation, then of course I will not report that I used mixed method. I'll report the qualitative design that I used within the mixed method. Then when it goes to the sample, I will also not cite the whole sample of 300. I will report the 10 participants that resonate with the findings that I'm having. So that's a major part that you want to look at, that you don't import a whole sample from the dissertation and bring it to a journal article. The sample size is supposed to be a sample size that reflects the paper that you are talking about. Then the next part we look at is the results section. So you've fully written your methodology, finished. Now we want to go to the results section. How do the results section of a paper look like? So in the results section, usually it's advised that you begin by presenting the findings. Remember, we started by this. Actually, when you are reading your dissertation to look at your findings, you started here. You started zeroing in on particular findings that you want to use to create an article. So in your dissertation, you already had a targeted finding. Now, these findings are the ones that are coming to the results section. And usually, most journals expect you report the sample characteristics. What in your dissertation, what you are calling demographics, that's what you are coming to the article now to report as sample characteristics. How many females were there? How many males? What percentage were educated? What if you actually look for data on that? And it should be sample characteristics for your sample. Again, I go back to, suppose I had a sample of 300, and then from the 300 in the dissertation, I'm publishing a qualitative paper. And in my dissertation, I only use 10 participants for the qualitative data. Then my sample size will be 10. Again, when I'm reporting the sample characteristics, I should report the sample characteristics for that 10, not now for the 300. So you always want to write your article being very careful that you are not replicating a dissertation. You are giving us work that is specific to this article. So the characteristics should be for the sample that is reported in your the methodology section that I've just talked about. Then you do not integrate. Most universities have seen, when you are writing your dissertation, you integrate your results in chapter 4 with your discussion. That's when you are citing literature. Now, for journal articles, you don't discuss in the results section. Results are presented as they came from the field. You present results and you interpret them, but you do not do discussion there. You do not cite in that part. So take care that, again, you are not importing your dissertation in this way. You have results, and then within the same area, the way you wrote your dissertation is the same way you are coming up and reporting what other scholars are saying. The results section is purely for the results. Then, this section is where now it includes tables, themes, and narratives for qualitative studies. That's what we'll be expecting to see in this section. Then now you go to a separate discussion section. Now, the discussion section, this is where you are now interpreting your results by comparing it with findings from other studies. This is now where you are discussing cited work. You are looking at your results and you are checking what have other scholars said about this. If, say, you are measuring a certain personality and you're finding the prevalence of this personality is very low in this population that you studied, what have other scholars globally reported on the same? So that's what you are doing. So in the discussion, you're actually now engaging literature to discuss the results that you have just presented in the previous section. And usually it's not supposed, again, to be done haphazardly. So when I read your results, there is a way you have presented your results. Table 1, Table 2 presented something, Table 3 presented something. When I go to your discussion, I also need to see the same structure, that you are not bringing the table in the discussion, but if say Table 1, I was reporting on demographic differences on a particular aspect, then in the discussion, I'm discussing work that other scholars have done on the same area in that chronology. Like if my first results, I was talking about personality prevalence, then the first paragraph where I'm discussing personality should be in that order. If the next finding, now I'm looking at a mental health disposition, then that's how the discussion should flow. So when I read your results and I read the discussion is expounding on your results, but using existing literature. And so I need to see citations there. Sometimes you need to also to check the theory that you used. It's supposed to come in the discussion. If your research was based anchored on a particular theory, you are now discussing here, citing the theory and showing how your results agree or disagree with the theory. And I see sometimes scholars trying to feel guilty when their results do not agree with the existing literature. It is good to bring up a discussion, a proper discussion in the discussion section. So you don't just want to bring a one-sided discussion. You are showing us that all your results were supported by existing literature. It's good also to cite literature that did not agree with your findings, and trying to bring the argument within the discussion, and even trying to bring out, what could be, why are your results differing from others? So you having results that are contrary to other findings is not a crime. It's actually a good contribution to your discipline. And then from there, we look at the conclusion section of your article. So in the conclusion, you are now drawing the reader. You've presented us with your introduction, methodology, results. You've discussed the results, but in the conclusion, you are now heading us towards, what is the implication of these results? What are the policy decisions? What are the policy implications for these results? How useful are these results to your discipline? That is what you're actually drawing us to as you come to your conclusion. How will this be relevant? And within this, you can actually also have a section of limitations. How limiting was your research? What areas did these findings not address well? These are areas, things that you need now to capture in the conclusion as you finish. You notice I started with introduction and I'm ending your article with abstract. Very strategic. Abstract is usually the first part of your article, but it's usually the last part to be written. So when you're writing an article, please do not start with an abstract. The abstract is written as the last part. Why? Because the abstract is supposed to summarize your entire research. In the abstract, the way your paper has appeared in terms of background, it has appeared in terms of methodology, the sample size, the measures that were used or tools that were used, the results and the implication. The same way is how an abstract is supposed to be. So if I read your abstract, I'm supposed to be reading your whole paper. And I always, the approach I use when I'm writing an abstract, I have written my paper, then I'll make some short headings: background or introduction, methodology, results, and then implications. Then I'll have a sentence on each part, 2 sentences or whatever on each part. Then I report my results. When I do that, then I drop now those subtitles. That will be a block text that is my abstract. So the abstract is written as the last part because you need to read your paper and write an abstract for it. Another common mistake I see, you see a scholar having written a whole paper, but they have just copy pasted the abstract they had in the whole dissertation. remember the abstract in the whole dissertation had given your 5 objectives. And I'm reading your abstract, but I'm reading your result. They are not on those 4 objectives. So do not import the abstract of your dissertation to be the abstract for the paper. Write the paper, then craft an abstract out of that. And then you have keywords. Below the abstract, you normally have what we call keywords. Now, keywords are very relevant because these are the words that will help your work to be noticed. So if I'm publishing, let's say, on depression, depression and suicide rates, maybe, then I would be picking such terms like suicide, depression, maybe sadness. Those are the terms that I'm picking to be key terms. Usually most articles require that in addition to the abstract, then below it you list maybe 5 keywords. They would need 5 keywords or 4 keywords. So once you write this abstract as the last thing, then you reverse it now. You'll take it and now write it at the beginning of your article. So once this is done, now your paper is complete. So shortly, then I take you through what do you do? Because this paper, remember you identified a journal already. You've now worked out you've written your article. You now want to submit this paper to a particular journal that you identified. Now, what do you do in the process of submitting this paper? Now, your paper that you have written, you need now to go to the specific journal you want to publish and download their author guidelines. On the website of every journal, you'll find author guidelines. So you may have a very nice article, but this article will be refused because it did not align with the author guidelines. So now you are going to the particular journal you have identified and downloading their author guidelines. Those author guidelines, they are not universal, they vary. So you'll find one journal telling you the number of words they want, the number of the formatting style, the referencing style, the positioning of the table. Some tell you you don't put tables within the journal. You put the tables at the end, and then you only indicate a placeholder for the tables. Some will tell you they want font 13 of this type. Those are the nitty-gritties that you are reading from the author guidelines, from the journals that you are using. So don't just write your journal, then you upload on a website of a journal. It can be rejected just based on these formatting issues. So you want to be sure that the journal you are going to publish in, you have interacted with it, you have read their author guidelines, you have seen the structure of how they write, what the editors are expecting you, and align your work that way. Once that is done, then you are almost ready to submit your work. Now, even if you are a linguist, if you are a English literature person, and you are publishing, please have your work to be read by another linguist. I always found you can't edit your work even if you are an expert. You'll always find some mistakes. Do not neglect the part of grammar in an article. Make sure you are not the only one who has read your article. Get someone a specialist and linguist, someone who understands language structure to read your paper, to check for you grammar. Then they can be able to make corrections before you submit your paper. First, papers can be rejected just based on grammar, on this and formatting mistakes. We call it a desk rejection. The editor receives your work and they read through and they tell you are not sending it to reviewers because it doesn't meet minimum standards. So you don't want your paper to be rejected by the editor at the desk. You want your paper to go beyond the editor. And one way of ensuring your work goes beyond the editor is to ensure the language is okay, the structure of the paper is okay, the scientific soundness is okay. Then the work will now go through the editor to reviewers who will engage with your work. If you publish in a journal, I always learn this from senior editors. If you publish in a journal, make sure you read the previous volumes of that journal and cite them in your paper. It normally increases the likelihood of your paper being published. So if I'm publishing in this journal, I'll have to check, has this journal published on this topic or in these areas before? Cite some of those articles of that journal. It's a good way of showing the journal you also value the journal. So that I learned from an editor who told me this normally helps them to see you appreciate their journal. So if the work is good and you have also cited them, that increases your chances of being published. Then strictly adhere to the submission guidelines of the specific journal you are publishing in. And as we have said, not being able, some journals tell you, submit this article and remove the authors. You submit the authors separate because they want to do what we call blind review. They don't want reviewers to know this paper is from Catholic University by so and so. So if you went ahead and uploaded that paper with your names, yet the editor is saying they want to do blind review, you need to send names separately. That is violation of the submission guidelines. That is a reason to have your journal article rejected. So those are some of the things you want to check before you submit your work. And then I will take you now to the last part. You have now uploaded your work. The work is submitted in the journal. What happens? What happens now is called peer review. So the editors will go through this work first. If they find you met all the conditions and the article is scientifically sound, they now proceed to give it to either 2 or 3 reviewers, independent people in your discipline. So these people will read the work. Once they read the work, then they will write back and give you comments on the areas that they want you to address. Now, when you receive the review report, please ensure you address all the issues raised by reviewers. Reviewers normally take it very disrespectful if they gave you comments and you didn't address them. I've seen some reviewers who review my papers actually even suggesting books for you to read. They tell you need to read this paper, you need to read this article. So it's very disrespectful. If this reviewer told me so, then I return the revised article and I did not cite the papers they are telling me. So you want to see when you receive the review report, take time, look at it, and see, create even a matrix. This is what reviewer 1 is saying. This is what reviewer 2 is saying. One by one, you want to address that particular concern. But again, I want to say you don't have to. Addressing doesn't mean implementing what the reviewers are saying. You don't have to implement everything. You can actually, it's an academic debate. They can suggest something that you feel, no, this is going to water down my work. So you simply don't ignore it, but you will actually decline, respectfully decline, and give an justification. So when you are revising the paper, then we always have a letter of response to these review comments. So you can review and tell them suggestion 1 is implemented here, suggestion 2 is implemented here, suggestion 3 was declined because of this, and this. Reviewers are always willing to engage. Don't just decide, I've decided I will not implement, and then you keep it that way. Reviewers, those who reviewed your work will always be sent the same work to check, did you do what they said? And it's really bad as a reviewer. I gave you comments and then I get the same work, and what I said you did not do, and you did not respond to it. So this is now post-review work that you are supposed to do to ensure the article will be published well, because it can still be rejected at this point. It was accepted, but then you didn't address what they said. They can still reject it at that point. And then reviews take several, like it can take several reviews before the work is accepted. Meaning, you submit your work, it is reviewed, you send, they also tell you need to review further. Please be patient, go through the process, because they are helping you to refine your article. Now, I want to give you good news that your work can also be rejected. So it's, when your work is rejected, please don't feel bad. Don't think it's your research that was rejected. Work can be rejected just because maybe the topic is not aligning well with the journal that you are publishing in. So sometimes when my work is rejected, I normally revise, but then I can submit in another different journal. And I've done that, and sometimes work is accepted in another journal that wanted that direction of thinking. So when your work is rejected, don't think now it is bad, you'll never publish again. So you need to be resilient. They review, they reject, you write back, you improve, and that's how you go through this journey. Now, once you have published, this is going to be my last point. Once you have published, promote the reading of your published work. I've seen many people with good papers, but people don't know about them. How do you promote the reading of your published article? Now, ensure, as a scholar, you need to create an account on Google Scholar. When you have a Google Scholar account, every paper you publish is normally collected by Google Scholar. They even give you points. There is what we call the H index. That is rating of researchers. Make sure your work is on Google Scholar, your work is on ResearchGate. You can promote your work like that because the more people read your work and cite it, the more also your ranking as a scientist or as a scholar increases. So you don't just want to publish and leave your work. You want to publish and keep publishing. And when you publish, you want to disseminate the work. The work is, you put it on other platforms, like ResearchGate is a platform for other scholars. So many scholars are on that. So always when I publish work, I always have to import it and bring it on ResearchGate. Then it sends notification to my networks, like it is a new paper here. That's how you promote your work to be read across different parts of the world. And I want to wind up by sharing a few articles. John will direct us how you get these articles. These are my own articles. And I've selectively chosen these 4 articles. First, you can see the first article here is a mixed methods article. So I want you to be able to read through and see if you decide to publish mixed methods from your dissertation, how does it look like? How do you bring both methods? How do you bring both qualitative and quantitative data within the same article? So this article can be downloaded. It's an open access, and you see the structure of that article. Then I have this article that is purely qualitative. So if you are choosing to publish qualitatively, you'll again see the style that I've used in writing this article and see what areas have I addressed. How does the article look like as a qualitative article? And then the third article is purely quantitative. So if you want to go quantitative, you want to publish a quantitative article from your work, again, this can be an article you can be able to read just to look at the structure. And finally, there is this book. This is a research guidebook for cross-cultural research. It's published it's a volume with more than authors from more than 60 universities. It's a free book, so I'll ask you to download. You can keep a copy for you in your library. So I think after presentation, we look at a way of how John will be able to share this work to you so that you can download these articles and see if they can be a guide as you develop your article for whatever reason that you want to publish. And so that's the end of my presentation. And I'll now turn to John to take us through taking questions if there are any questions and reactions. But those who may want to reach me for further conversation, those are my contacts. So John, back to you.
Thank you so much, Daktari. I believe everyone has been able to capture something. Just by a show of, you can react. Those that know how to react, if you've gotten something, you can react by just showing a thumbs up. Just before we get into the questions.
And John, you also picked a few, I think there are some questions in the chat area. You'll pick them, we'll be able to react to them.
All right. Yeah, I'm seeing people are showing their thumbs up. Thank you so much, everyone that are showing their thumbs up that they've gotten. And we are going, Milka is also raising her hand. Milka, you can just keep your hand raised for a little bit. And we're going to give you an opportunity to ask a question. I think we'll want to address first the questions that are in the chat box. Then after the questions that are in the chat box, we are going to now bring in any other person who will want to ask orally the questions that they are having. So Dr. Satsa, we are having a question here. I'm going to go to the first question that was asked by Susan. Susan was asking, is there any limitation of number of pages in an article? Is there a limitation of number of pages?
Yes, a good question. And I would refer you to the section that I talked about, getting to the journal and downloading their author guidelines. Now, when you go to author guidelines, some journals will tell you not more than 4,000 words. Others will tell you not more than 8,000 words. So there is no standard page number of articles, but it goes by the journal that you have chosen. So for each journal, they'll tell you the length of the papers that they want.
Alrighty. As I'm going to the next question, I just also want to give everyone an assurance that you'll be receiving the slides and you'll also be receiving today's recording sent to your email. So don't worry, as well as the articles DOI number, so that you can download them directly from them. The second question is coming from Cyprian Doc, and Cyprian is asking, can you share some general guidelines for journals that one should pay attention to even before one identifies a suitable journal?
Yeah,
share some general. Okay.
I would want to invite Cyprian to share more on that, because from the introduction, I talked about reputable journals, how we get them, and then I talked about predatory and how to avoid them. I was thinking that question fits in those two, but the presenter can ask the question and clarify, then I can be able to respond. If they can do it verbally, or again, follow up with another typed question on that.
Okay,
yes,
welcome,
Doctor.
Cyprian.
Thank you, Doctor, for the informative presentation. Yeah, I was keenly following, and I got those tips. However, what I meant, I wanted to get clarity in terms of maybe the structure, because sometimes we find it so hard to start writing before you get what a certain journal requires, maybe in terms of format, in terms of what to include, something like that. So what I'm asking is related to the flow and the structure. Are there some general aspects that one would at least look at as you look for the journal? Thank you.
Yes, for the structure of the paper, always when I want to write a paper, I always start by, I know most journals follow the order of abstract, introduction, methodology, results, discussion. So I'll always write roughly my paper like that. Then I start looking for the journals. But when I'm looking for the journals, like right now, some of these papers have published in journals that it's taken more than 6 months to be published, because I wasn't rushing to graduate. I'm just publishing my work as a scholar. So the other general guidelines we are looking at is, how long does this journal take to process my work? That's when you are searching to identify which journal do I go in. How long does this journal take? How much do they even charge for the article? Some journals are free, but they take 2 years to publish. Some journals will charge you, but then they take maybe 2 months or 3 months. So those are factors now that you are looking at now, subjectively deciding as a person, like, this is the journal that I'm going to go to. But usually when you look at the structure, mostly when we go to the journal websites, once I identify this journal, I can afford the cost. This journal, it can publish within the time that I want. Then I'll go now to their website and now download their author guidelines. Now they'll direct you now the nitty-gritties. This is how you need to prepare your article. I don't know if I've responded satisfactorily to your question.
Yes, Doctor, it's very clear. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cyprian, for the question. I see the number of hands that are raised right now. There are more, and maybe Doc, we answer the questions that are raised, that
Yes,
are asked
we can
orally.
take the live ones, then we go back to the chat.
All right, Milka, you are the first one to raise your hand. You can switch on your mic, then ask the question.
Milka, you are mute. I'm suspecting you are talking, but you are muted.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Doc. I have a few questions. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, yes.
My first question is, does Square do publishing of articles? And if they do, what are the guidelines? How long do they take to review and publish, and how much do they charge? The other one I have is, I saw you are among the reviewers or publishers in Daystar University. So
Yes.
how much do Daystar charge, and how long do they take to publish? Thank you.
Okay, so that touches specifically on some of the journals that I'm involved in. Yeah, the one for Daystar is African Journal for Clinical Psychology. I am a reviewer there. It's actually free. They don't charge. And I think they publish, it should be 4 times a year. I know there is a volume they are working on for September. So if you want to publish now, then you can be able to go to their website, and there is a procedure of uploading the article. So it's not paid for. It is a quarterly journal. For Queer, it's also quarterly, but you can also go to the website. I think Queer charges 6,500 to 10,000 per article, but you can go to the website for Queer and you'll be able to find the specifics for each journal. Again, it's not just one journal for Queer. Each school, there is one for School of Business, School of Social Sciences, School of Law. So you now go and align with your particular school and download the guidelines, and then you can be able to submit. And again, as I said, even other universities have seen, if you go to KU, they have their journals. You go to University of Nairobi, they have their journals. Makerere University, they have their journals. So you are not limited to specific ones. You can publish even in universities in Nigeria. For me, once a journal is listed or is being run by a university, that's a credible journal. So not be limited only to your specific area. You can scan around different universities and see what journals they have, what conditions they have, and then you can be able to submit. Before I leave that question, there was a very important question in the journal I picked in the chat area. Someone asked, can you submit an article in 2 journals at the same time? It is an academic crime to submit a journal in 2 journals. Actually, most journals will tell you when you are filling the submission guide requirement, they'll ask you confirm that this journal article has not also been submitted in another journal. You can't double publish, you can't submit. So if I've submitted a journal in an article and it's taking long, I can only be patient. If I think they are delaying and I want to put in another journal, then I need to write to them to withdraw it, but I cannot leave it hanging there, then I submit in another one. What if both of them agree? That is now becomes it brings any issues of integrity in your academic life, and you don't want to go that way. Proceed, John, to the next.
Yeah, thank you so much, Doc. The next person is Jen. Jen, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Dr. Stephen, for that incredible presentation. It's really informative. My question is on when you mentioned that some of these publishers really check whether you have cited, not that they check, but they are happy to see you citing the journals that have been published in their, the articles that have been published in their journals. Would you kindly clarify if it is permissible now that you've already written your thesis and there are those scholars that you've already cited, is it permissible now to either replace some of those citations with what you find in those publications?
Yeah, very good question. And if you pick my presentation, I've been saying not the thesis, not the dissertation, the journal. They are 2 different things. Actually, it's a good point you are raising. Even if I'm not citing that journal, you'll notice the way I structured my results in maybe objective 1, which I'm publishing on, I had very minimal discussion in the dissertation. But you see, when I'm doing an article, I need to do very in-depth discussion. So you'll see a discussion that needs to be like 500 words discussion or even more. So if I only went by my discussion in the dissertation, it's too limited. So it follows that it's obvious, even whether you are going to cite in that journal or not, when I'm writing my discussion section, I will always cite, I'll always do fresh review. I can get more newer findings and bring them in. So I'm not limited to the reviews that I did in the dissertation. If I'm seeing my results and there is a new finding, there's a new publication that I want to cite, I can still cite it, even if it's not cited in the thesis.
Right. Yeah, the next one in the list is Sister Cecilia. Sister Cecilia, welcome.
Thank you, Doc, for this impactful presentation. I think part of my question has been answered when you answered the one of Mildred. Is it Mildred? Yes. So, yeah, I just wanted to ask if there's a free platform to publish, but you have already answered the question for Daystar. So I'm also a Daystar student. So I will get back to you after the class. Thank you so much for your presentation. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. Yes, Letish? Letish, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to appreciate the doctor for the insightful presentation. And my question is, just I wanted to seek some clarification on the sampling and sample size. If the sample size is too big while writing the thesis, do we put the whole sample, or do we, I don't know, give us more clarification on that? Thank you very much.
The sample size, you don't reduce it because it's big. You pick a sample size that resonates with your findings. And the way I'd done in the presentation, I was like, a practical example, you have your sample size is 230 people. But in the 230, you also did 10 people for qualitative. 230 were for quantitative, 10 were for qualitative within that 230. If I chose to write an article on qualitative, in the methods, I will not use 230 as my sample. I will use 10 because my paper is not for the whole dissertation. My paper is for the qualitative part. So but if I did I've written my paper and it's a mixed methods, and it's going to have findings from both the qualitative and the quantitative, then I will still, in my methods, I will still use the 230 as the sample size. So the sample you report in the paper is actually the sample from which the results of the findings came. So you don't want to just take a whole sample. And again, you cannot say now, because it's a paper and my sample size was 410, so because it's just a paper, let me divide and take the sample halfway. No, the sample remains, the sample that is in the findings is the sample that you are reporting in your methods area.
Thank you so much for that, Letish. I hope you're satisfied. Henry?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for the presentation, Doc. So I want to know whether there is a particular referencing style for your publication, because of course in dissertation, some university has their own referencing style. Why others use the Harvard, some use the LMA and the APA, I suppose. So I want to know whether for publication, maybe you stick to a particular reference style, or it varies across publishing house. The next is on the publication, the topic. Is there any word count range? Let's say, because let's see the number of words for your topic. Is there any range for it? Say 12, 15 or that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. First question is on whether there is a specific referencing style. Again, very key. Mostly we are used to writing APA, those from social sciences. Of course, if you go to religion, they have their own. Mathematics, they have their own style. From social sciences, we are used to writing APA, but don't assume that all journals go for APA. When you go to writing guidelines now, author guidelines on the website of the journal, they leave one of the areas they address is referencing. So you can have written your work in APA, then you realize they have that the particular journal you want to publish in, they are using MLA. So always be sensitive to that. And I thank you for raising that question, because that's one of the things that can make your paper be rejected. You have a nice paper, everything is okay, but because you are used to APA alone, you submitted your paper with a wrong referencing. Not wrong, but it's not a style for that journal. They'll shoot down that paper because of that. So you want to read the author guidelines and ensure that the referencing style the journal is using is the one that you have used. Then on the second question was on, just remind me, John. I'm trying to be a man to multitask is a problem. What was
On the
the
topic.
second question? The topic, and also the number of words. Yeah, was it the topic?
Is there any number of words, specific number of words, let's say range?
Oh yeah, yeah. This is a controversial thing. I always see in defenses. I always question my fellow scholars. In defenses, they'll tell us, student, your topic is more than 25 words, so it is not a good topic. But I always checked with my fellow scholars, is it scientific? Is there any scientific agreement on this? And I found, oh no, it's just preference of institutions. Of course, you don't want to write a paragraph as a title, because a title is supposed to be short and clear. But I personally, I don't go prescribing like this number of words, but I just want is my title descriptive, short and clear. You don't want a long one, but the debate of the number of words, I've seen defenses in some institutions where a student, if they say that the title should be 25 words and the student had 27 words, they could shoot down that work. And I'm like, it is not scientific. There is, I've also read, maybe I've not just come with a scientific formula that is saying it should be 25 words. So it's usually preference, but you want to be prudent and just make sure my title can be understood by non-academicians, because your work is going to be read by different people. So I don't want to write very complicated title with very huge vocabularies, but I just want a simple title that it can make meaning to the reader. That's the general guideline that I can give. Yes, next, John.
All right. Thank you so much, Doc. Still, while you're still addressing the journal issue, Doc, will you still also answer this question that Jose was asking? Some other high-end journals reject papers, but those papers later on are accepted by subscription journals. I think he wanted to say substandard journals. Why is that phenomenon?
Yes, it's good to know, and it's good. Even in sports, there is what we do, boxing. There is heavyweight. There is feather. What is the other? Those who are sportsmen here, those levels. So you cannot take a heavyweight person to go and fight with a feather or lightweight. They will kill them. So you need to look at yourself as a scholar. You are an early career scholar. You don't want to go to some of the world highest ranking journals. They will reject your journal even without looking at it, because you need to grow and reach a certain level of writing for you to submit there. So my advice is also choose journals that you would say they are not very high impact. Of course, we grow. Even media journals have not started publishing in. When I send my work, it's rejected that way, because those high impact journals, they also receive a lot of articles. So even finding time to start looking at yours is a whole period. So sometimes they would reject just because they have huge numbers of articles that are coming in. So you want to weigh and see. I'm not also going to put myself to the highest factor journal, and yet I just want a paper to be published in the next two months. I'm just a newly graduated master's or PhD student. You'll be fighting in a heavyweight ring that is when you are not supposed to fight there.
Okay, Doc, and while you're publishing and you're a student, who is the principal investigator? This is asked by Justin. Is it your supervisor or is you the student?
Yeah, I always say it's a student's work. So student, you're always the first author. Please don't exchange with your supervisor. It wasn't their work. The student is the first one. The first supervisor is second author. The third supervisor is the third author. That's usually the order. So don't accept to change because it was your work. It was not their work.
All right, Sister Angelica, your hand is up. Welcome so much. You can ask your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Tsasa, for the enriching input. My question is, my topic, it was an intervention, and I did the intervention on meditation, journaling, and breathing. So I wanted to ask whether my article can be focused only on one. For example, I was thinking on focusing on meditation.
Yes. If you look at that work, you can actually write a paper on meditation alone. And you write a paper on journaling alone. And keep note, if you write the paper on meditation alone, your sample size will be what the people that participated in the meditation experiment. So that's what you need to take note. So already those are three possible papers that can come from your thesis.
Then in the meditation, there was a big drop because I started with a sample of 20 and they finished 11. Am I supposed to bring up that?
Yes, you report the sample you started with and that drop. If the people went dropping, you'll explain that. That should be captured very well in your methodology.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Angelica, for your question. Joseph Lukak, you can ask your question.
Okay, thank you, Doctor, for the opportunity. I appreciate the organization of this online forum. I wanted to ask, like for first-time authors or people who wanted to publish, how do you start in terms of a step? Do you need to request the journal first for the requirement, or you need to draft your manuscript and then share with a specific journal so that they send you the requirements? This is one. Two, how do you also clarify the roles of the authors? You just mentioned, I like the example you gave about the levels of the boxing. So now, for example, consider somebody who is still fresh in this field and wanted to publish. Which are those rings that can handle our situation, like the first people who want to write and publish their work? Thank you.
Yes, for the first one is on author guidelines. When you check through my presentation, we talked about how to identify journals, how to identify what you want to publish from your work. Then you always go to the journal's website. You read what they expect. They'll tell you the number of words, the length of the paper. They'll tell you the formatting. They'll tell you how tables are supposed to be. So those nitty-gritties are specific to each journal, and they'll be able to be picked from the journals that you've picked to publish from. Number two, the in terms of which journals do you want to publish in at your level as a student? I think if you pick a university journal, some of the university journals, and you don't want to go to Harvard University, the top world universities, those will reject your work, definitely. But you want to start with your own university. Does it have a journal? If it doesn't, go to the neighboring university. Does it have a journal? Those universities will not reject your work. But again, one thing maybe I note is, as a student, when you're publishing from your work, is you are working with your supervisors who are already senior scholars than you. Please make use of them before you take to another reviewer. Let your supervisor read your work. Sometimes I find the students have supervised. A student has just gone ahead, published an article, and they are sending me an article that is having wrong spellings. So the first thing I normally want is to protect my name, and I write to that article and tell the journal and tell them, remove my name very fast. So please use us as your supervisors. Reach us, give us your articles. Let's read. We can help you to refine, and because we are co-authors. So as a student, you are also not just carrying the burden alone. Once you write, because your supervisor's name will appear on that journal, let him also read and give you comments. Then you can be able to like it can really be able to like give you a quality article. David is asking, as I am still a student, is it possible to be involved in any work as a co-author? Yes, please. I encourage students, don't wait for graduation, then you start publishing. If even the papers you have been researching in class, those papers you can make them as articles. But you are asking, is it possible to be involved in any work as a co-author? Please clarify. Do you want to co-author with someone, or you are just saying about your own work? David, you can clarify. Okay, we seem not to hear him. So John, do we have any other questions left before we wrap up?
I think most of the questions are addressed. We are just having this one question. There's been a general cry about journals taking too long to publish. Is there any specific criteria that can help to pick on a quick journal that will not be adversely affected by this? I mean, delaying in publishing. I think that was addressed already, but maybe you can just do it quick down as we wind it up.
Yes, for me is, I would say start early. Don't wait for graduation is 2 weeks away, then you want to start publishing and you are now looking for a journal for 1 week. Actually, I would tell students start working on publication 6 months before. But always when we are searching for journals, you could always get journals that will tell you we take 2 months. So you go there even expecting. So you don't pick a journal that has no definite time. A journal should tell you we normally publish within 2 months, then go for that journal. But I wouldn't either submit a paper to a journal that is open, like they are not telling me how long do I expect my paper to be published. And then, Margaret, I think your question is there a limitation on number of words or pages? Yes, we said each journal will tell you this number of words, this number of pages, no colors, this type of page table. So if you always go to the journal website, you can always download the requirements for that journal, and it will show you the pages and everything, that the way they want their papers to look like.
Right.
John,
Thank you. Thank you.
John, there are maybe few things that I've seen that you can. I see people posting emails on this. So either you'll pick these emails, John, because we need to send them the presentation and the recording, or they can still register. Yes, proceed.
Yes, I wanted to address the email. I'm going to pick up these mails from the chat box, so it's okay. I'll add them in the mail contacts that I'm having, so that I share the recordings immediately it's out.
Yes, Sharif is asking, how do we incorporate theory in the discussion? Usually, your study was supported by theory. It was anchored on a theory. So when you go to discussion, you are discussing your results and showing, do they support the theory? If your theory said men don't cry, let me pick that, men don't cry. Are your results showing that, or are your results disagreeing with the theory? Then as we wind up, it has been very nice to have this group of more than 100 people attentively with me to the end. And I think when we got the registration from yesterday, we were seeing people were raising areas that they would want us to talk about next if we have a seminar. So I would say you can be on the lookout. We can be able to send you more information. I think people asked about artificial intelligence in literature review. We would be able to organize another seminar. And then I would also request possibly those who are writing papers, if we write papers, we would actually convene another time in this forum and use this forum to review your paper live. Like we now read the paper and tell you, yeah, your introduction, you need to change this. We can do live review, and that can really give us like some information on to be involved live in how a review process is normally done. Usually when I present these seminars, I would say, yeah, if there are people here who are going to be writing articles and you want them to be reviewed here before you send to your article, that would be very nice. We can organize another seminar just to read several, and I can pick some of you to be reviewers, then we review together, and then we see how we can be able to help one another to improve the journal articles. Yeah, so it's an online meeting. I know people are already tired. I want to end my meeting there. So I'll just take back to John. I don't know what you have to say, but we have to end so that we can set people free to proceed to their different workstations wherever they are.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much, Doc. And yeah, I know and I understand very well. A lot of people still have a lot of questions, but as Doc has mentioned, we can still have more of these seminars in different platforms as far as this is concerned, and I believe it's still going to be addressed. Your question are going to be addressed. Otherwise, the doctor's contacts is here in the screen. You can take the mail, you can take the WhatsApp number, and you can reach out to Dr. Satsa with that pressing question, because we can't address all of them right now. And therefore, this just brings us to the closure of this. We'll be recording the emails, and I'll also be downloading all the messages we're having in the chat box and make these recordings and the slides available for you. Immediately the recording is available for access. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Sasa, for sharing with us this. And if somebody feels like he really wants to say something before we close.
Thank you very much. We appreciate.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Doctor, for the presentation.
Yeah, and even in the chat box, Dr. Sasa, a lot of people have said, thank you so much for sharing this. I believe it was very, very informative. And those people that are joining us from outside the country, we also love you so much. And even them that are joining from local universities, we appreciate your presence. Thank you so much. Everyone can now leave at their own pleasure.
Thank you,
everyone. Bye.
and greetings from Nigeria. God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.